Commander Zethkar sat in his command chair on the bridge of the Dominion's edge. His 6 arms moved across the control panels as he studied the reports from his scout ships. The data stream showed him everything he needed to know about the 3rd planet in this solar system. The humans called it Earth Dot. He had done this 17 times before. 17 different worlds, 17 different species. All of them had fallen to his fleet within days. The Vorthic Empire grew stronger with each victory. His tactical officer, Sub-Commander Yithanol, approached the command chair. "Sir, the intelligence reports are complete. The humans have basic spaceflight technology. Their weapons appear equal to our standard equipment. Nothing special about them." Zethkar nodded. His purple skin showed the dark stripes that marked him as a career military officer. His 4 eyes focused on the holographic display showing human ships near the outer planets. "What about their military structure?" "Strange, sir. They do not have one central command. Each group of ships seems to operate independently. Our analysts think this makes them weak. No coordination between units. This was new information. Every other species the Vorthic had conquered used centralized command structures. The Kelthani had their honor councils that made all decisions. The Miros had their fortress commanders who controlled entire sectors. Even the Quick Avari had clear chains of command. "Send 3 scout ships to probe their defenses near the gas giant," Zethkar ordered. "Standard reconnaissance pattern. Gather data on their response times and tactics." The scout ships moved toward Jupiter, where human patrols had been detected. Zethkar watched the tactical display as his ships approached the human position. A small human vessel appeared on the screen. The computer identified it as a patrol craft with minimal armament. Lieutenant Jake Morrison commanded the human ship called Defiant Spirit. He had 5 crew members with him on what should have been a routine patrol mission. When the Vorthic scouts appeared on his sensors, Morrison did something that confused everyone watching. Instead of calling for backup or retreating to a safe distance, Morrison spoke to his crew over the ship's communication system. "Well, boys, looks like we got company. 3 bogies coming in fast. Sarah, get us closer to them." Pilot Sarah Cole laughed as she adjusted their course. "You want to get closer to 3 ships that outgun us 10 to 1? That's crazy even for you, Jake." "Sometimes crazy works," Morrison replied. "Tony, start recording everything. Command needs to see how these things fight." Technical Sergeant Tony Barnes began recording sensor data while the ship moved toward the enemy scouts. The other crew members prepared their limited weapons and defensive systems. Zethkar watched this with growing confusion. The human ship was clearly outmatched. Any rational commander would retreat and call for reinforcements. Instead, these humans were approaching his scouts as if they had a chance of winning. The first exchange of weapons fire lasted only seconds. The human ship took heavy damage, but managed to score several hits on the lead Vorthic scout. Then Morrison did something that made no tactical sense. "Ram the middle one," Morrison ordered. "Everyone get to the escape pods now." "Sir, that will destroy our ship," Sergeant Barnes protested. "That's the idea. Move it, people. Sarah, set us on collision course, then get out of there." The crew abandoned their ship while it continued toward the Vorthic formation. At the last moment, the escape pods launched in different directions. The unmanned ship crashed into the second scout vessel, damaging both ships severely. But the humans were not finished. The escape pods had been launched in a coordinated pattern. They came together near the 3rd scout ship and used their small emergency weapons to target the vessel's sensor array. The precision of their attack was perfect. They blinded the scout ship just as human reinforcements arrived in the area. 3 human warships appeared near Jupiter within an hour. Captain Lisa Parker commanded the Northern Star, a medium-sized cruiser. Commander Ryan Brooks led the Steel Resolve, a heavily armed destroyer. Major Kate Sullivan brought Marine units aboard the assault ship Thunderbolt. Zethkar expected the human reinforcements to attack his damaged scouts. Instead, they focused entirely on search and rescue operations. The three ships spread out to locate Morrison's crew in the escape pods. "This makes no sense," Sub-Commander Yithanol said as they watched the human ships. "They ignore our damaged vessels to look for 5 crew members. This is tactically wasteful." The commander studied the human rescue operation with growing interest. Captain Parker coordinated the search with military precision. Her ships used advanced scanning equipment and deployed smaller craft to check every possible location. Commander Brooks positioned his destroyer to guard against counterattack whilst Major Sullivan's Marines conducted the actual rescue operations. What impressed Zethkar most was the persistence of the human search. They spent 6 hours looking for Morrison's team, exposing their ships to potential ambush. When they finally located all 5 crew members, the celebration on the human communication channels was audible across space. "We got them all," Captain Archer announced. "Morrison's team is safe aboard Thunderbolt, all personnel accounted for." The human ships then departed the area without attempting to pursue or destroy the damaged Vorthix scouts. They had accomplished their mission, which appeared to be rescuing their own people rather than defeating the enemy. Back on the Dominion's edge, Zethkar reviewed the encounter data. The human tactical decisions made no sense according to standard military doctrine. They had sacrificed an expensive warship for minimal tactical advantage. They had exposed 3 larger vessels to rescue 5 crew members who should have been considered acceptable losses. Yet the execution of their plan had been flawless. The ramming attack had been perfectly timed. The escape pod deployment had been coordinated to maximize damage to his scouts. The rescue operation had been conducted with professional skill and determination. "Request additional intelligence on human military organization," Zethkar ordered. "I want detailed analysis of their command structure and tactical doctrine." The reports that came back over the following days troubled him more than any weapon system or defensive capability. Human military forces operated with individual initiative at every level. Officers made independent decisions based on their assessment of local conditions. There was no rigid hierarchy that could be disrupted or predicted. More disturbing was the evidence of what humans called morale. Unlike other species that fought for territory or resources, humans appeared to fight for abstract concepts. Their military personnel expressed loyalty to ideas rather than just to commanders or governments. Morrison had risked his ship and crew not to gain tactical advantage, but to gather information that might help other humans survive future encounters. His crew had followed his orders not out of fear or duty, but because they believed in the mission. Zethkar had conquered 17 worlds using predictable patterns of behavior. The Kelthani would fight with honor until defeat became certain, then surrender with dignity. The Miros would retreat to defensive positions and negotiate from strength. The Avari would conduct hit-and-run attacks until their losses became unsustainable. Humans did not fit any known pattern. They made tactical decisions based on factors that had nothing to do with military advantage. They valued individual lives over strategic objectives. They fought with creativity and adaptability that made their responses impossible to predict. The commander made his final log entry for the day with unusual uncertainty. Human military capabilities appear manageable through conventional doctrine. However, their behavioral patterns require further study before invasion protocols can be implemented. Recommend extended observation period to develop effective countermeasures. For the first time in his career, Zethkar was not confident about the outcome of a military campaign. These humans fought unlike any species he had encountered. Understanding how to defeat them would require understanding what motivated them to fight in the first place. 3 weeks passed before Zethkar felt ready to begin the invasion. His analysts had studied every piece of data about human military forces. The reports all agreed that humans were manageable opponents. Their technology was adequate, but not superior. Their numbers were small compared to the Vorthic fleet. The commander chose Europa Station as his first target. The mining facility orbited Jupiter with only 40 security personnel and no heavy weapons. It should have surrendered within hours of being surrounded by Vorthic warships. Station Commander Ben Hughes received the surrender demand while sitting in his small office reviewing supply reports. He was a quiet man who had spent 15 years managing mining operations in deep space. His security force consisted of former military personnel who had taken civilian jobs for better pay and easier work. "Sir, we have 12 Vorthic heavy cruisers surrounding the station," Chief Security Officer Danny Roberts reported. "They want us to surrender immediately, or they will destroy the facility." Hughes looked at the tactical display showing the overwhelming enemy force. Any military academy would teach that resistance was pointless. The smart choice was to surrender and save lives. Instead, Hughes activated the station-wide communication system. "Attention all personnel. This is Commander Hughes. We are under attack by hostile alien forces. I will not order anyone to fight. Anyone who wants to evacuate may use the emergency shuttles. For those who stay, we will hold this position as long as possible." Chief Engineer Amy Foster was the first to respond. "Ben, the mining lasers can be modified for defensive use. Give me 2 hours and I can turn this rock into a fortress." Security Chief Roberts nodded agreement. "My people signed up to protect this station. We are not running away now." One by one, the station personnel reported their intention to stay and fight. Only 6 people chose to evacuate. The remaining 34 began preparing for a battle they could not win. Seth Carr watched the human response with growing confusion. His intelligence reports had indicated that humans valued self-preservation above military objectives. Yet these civilians were choosing to fight against impossible odds. "Perhaps they do not understand the situation," Subcommander Yithanol suggested. "Should we send another surrender demand with detailed casualty projections?" "No," Zethkar replied. "Begin the assault. Minimal force initially. They will surrender once they see our capabilities." The first Vorthic attack was designed to disable the station's communications and power systems. It should have ended resistance within minutes. Instead, the humans responded with tactics that defied military logic. Amy Foster had indeed converted the mining equipment into weapons. The massive industrial lasers were not designed for combat, but they could cut through Vorthic ship armor with devastating effect. More importantly, she had networked all the station systems so that losing any single component would not disable their defenses. Danny Roberts led his security team through maintenance tunnels that connected every part of the station. They appeared in unexpected locations, hit Vorthic boarding parties with precise attacks, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The station's layout became a maze that trapped the attackers while giving defenders unlimited mobility. What confused Zethkar most was the coordination between human personnel. They had no rigid command structure. Commander Hughes made strategic decisions, but every individual acted independently within those guidelines. Engineer Foster modified defensive systems in real time based on what she observed during combat. Security Chief Roberts adjusted his tactics moment by moment as the situation changed. The humans were fighting as if each person understood the overall battle plan without needing detailed orders. They anticipated each other's actions and adapted to new situations faster than Vorthic commanders could analyze and respond. On the second day of the siege, Zethkar intercepted a communication between Hughes and Earth Command. He expected to hear requests for reinforcement or permission to surrender. Instead, Admiral Karen Foster spoke to the station commander with calm professionalism. "Ben, You have complete tactical authority. Make whatever decisions you think are best for your people. We trust your judgment." "Understood, Admiral. We can hold for several more days if necessary." "That is not an order, Commander. Your primary responsibility is to your crew. Do what you think is right." Hughes smiled as he ended the communication. Then he turned to his team and explained the situation with brutal honesty. "Command says we can evacuate if we want. No one will blame us for leaving. But if we stay, we might buy time for other colonies to prepare their defenses." The crew voted unanimously to continue fighting. Meanwhile, other human forces throughout the solar system began responding to the attack on Europa Station. But their actions made no tactical sense to Zethkar-S analysts. Colonel Rick Santos led a strike force from Ceres asteroid base. Instead of attempting to relieve Europa Station, Santos attacked Vorthix supply lines between Jupiter and the outer system. His ships used hit-and-run tactics that forced the commander to divert vessels from the main assault. Captain Helen Morris evacuated civilian populations from Titan, while simultaneously gathering intelligence on Vorthix fleet movements. Her transport ships avoided combat but transmitted detailed tactical information to other human forces. Major Paul Turner established hidden bases in the asteroid belt. His forces harassed Vorthix patrols with precision attacks that destroyed specific ship components without causing casualties. The attacks were designed to disable rather than kill, but they were devastatingly effective. Each human commander made independent decisions that created a coordinated pattern of resistance. They were not following a master plan created by higher authority. Instead, they were improvising tactics based on their understanding of the overall situation and their assessment of what needed to be done. Sergeant Linda Hayes led the most audacious operation of the campaign. Her Marine unit boarded a Vorthix heavy cruiser using techniques that should have been impossible. The team moved through zero-gravity environments as if they had been born in space. They communicated using grief hand signals that somehow conveyed complex tactical information. Most remarkably, they improvised weapons from ship components in real time. Hayes and her Marines captured the cruiser's engineering section and held it for 6 hours before extracting safely. During that time, they gathered detailed intelligence on Vorthix ship design and transmitted it to other human forces throughout the system. The boarding action succeeded because the Marines made tactical decisions that Vorthix computers rated as impossible. They took risks that no rational military assessment would approve. Yet their understanding of each other and their equipment allowed them to accomplish objectives that should have required much larger forces. By the 4th day of the Europa siege, Zethkar realized that his initial assessment had been completely wrong. The humans were not fighting a conventional military campaign. They were fighting a war of adaptation, constantly changing their methods based on what they learned about their enemies. Commander Hughes broadcast his final message on the 6th day. "This is Europa Station to all human forces. Our position is no longer sustainable. We estimate 12 hours before final defensive perimeter is breached." Zethkar expected a surrender offer or a request for evacuation assistance. Instead, Hughes continued with a statement that chilled the Vorthix commander. "We have gathered extensive tactical data on enemy capabilities and transmitted all information to Earth Command. Our mission has been accomplished. We will attempt to deny this facility to hostile forces." Hughes out. The explosion that destroyed Europa Station also eliminated Zethkar's command cruiser and 2 heavy destroyers. Hughes and his team had rigged the station's fusion reactors to overload while simultaneously ramming their remaining shuttles into Vorthix ships. The plan required perfect timing and coordination between multiple groups of personnel. The probability of success had been calculated at less than 3%. Yet the humans had executed it flawlessly. achieving tactical objectives that military computers rated as impossible. Zeth Kar sat in his damaged flagship reviewing casualty reports that told a story he did not want to believe. 34 human civilians had held off his entire assault fleet for 6 days. They had inflicted losses that exceeded anything in his military experience. Most disturbing, they had accomplished their mission objectives while being completely destroyed. These humans did not fight like any species he had encountered. They fought for reasons that had nothing to do with territorial conquest or resource acquisition. They fought for abstract concepts that made their behavior impossible to predict using conventional military analysis. The commander realized that conquering Earth would require understanding what motivated humans to sacrifice everything for causes they believed in. This was not a military problem that could be solved with superior firepower or tactical advantage. This was something entirely different. Zeth Kar spent the next week studying human personnel files and communication records captured from the Europa Station battle. The casualty reports from his own forces told a story that challenged everything he believed about military effectiveness. 34 humans had destroyed 3 of his best warships and damaged 5 others. They had held off an entire invasion fleet for 6 days using mining equipment and improvised weapons. The mathematical analysis made no sense according to Vorthic military doctrine. Commander, we have intercepted personal communications from human military personnel, Sub-Commander Yithanol reported. The translation programs are having difficulty with the content. Zeth Kar reviewed the intercepted messages on his command display. Most were letters and video recordings sent between human soldiers and their families on Earth. The content was unlike anything in Vorthic. Military databases. Private Bobby Clark recorded daily messages for his 8-year-old daughter back on Earth. He described his experiences fighting the Vorthic invasion not as a military duty, but as a moral obligation. Sweetheart, Daddy has to make sure the bad aliens don't hurt anyone. I know you miss me, but this is important work. The private explained complex military operations using simple language that a child could understand. He talked about protecting innocent people and defending freedom as if these abstract concepts were physical objects that required constant care and attention. Lieutenant Colonel Sandra White maintained regular communication with her brother, Captain Greg White, who served aboard a different vessel in the human fleet. Their relationship created tactical complications that should have weakened both units. During one intercepted conversation, Sandra diverted her ship from a planned mission to provide support for Greg's operation against a Vorthic supply convoy. The tactical decision violated human military protocols and exposed her crew to unnecessary risk, yet the combined effectiveness of both units exceeded what either could have accomplished independently. They coordinated attacks using references that only siblings would understand, creating a communication system that Vorthic intelligence could not decode or predict. They fight for each other as much as they fight against us, Zeth Kar observed. Their personal relationships create tactical advantages instead of weaknesses. The commander began to understand that human military effectiveness came from emotional connections that bound their forces together. Unlike Vorthic soldiers who followed orders out of discipline and fear, humans fought out of love for the people they were protecting. This realization became critical when Zeth Kar learned about a human rescue mission that defied all military logic. The transport ship Morning Glory had been carrying evacuated civilians from the outer colonies when it was captured by a Vorthic patrol squadron. According to standard military doctrine, the civilians aboard Morning Glory should have been classified as acceptable losses. The ship was deep in enemy-controlled space with no strategic value. Any rescue attempt would require resources that could be better used for offensive operations. Instead, Admiral Karen Foster authorized a rescue mission led by her own son, Commander Tony Foster. The operation would require precise coordination between multiple human forces operating in hostile territory. Marines led by Colonel Pete Johnson would board the captured transport using stealth insertion techniques. Fighter squadrons commanded by Major Kathy Hill would provide covering fire and distraction. Captain Joe Miller would coordinate extraction using his fast transport, Swift Current. Zethkar monitored the rescue operation with growing amazement. Each human unit made independent tactical decisions based on incomplete information, trusting that their companions would adapt to changing circumstances. Colonel Johnson's Marines approached the Morning Glory using a debris field for cover. When Vorthic's sensors detected their approach earlier than expected, Johnson made a split-second decision to accelerate the boarding operation instead of aborting the mission. His Marines used their own bodies to shield the civilian evacuees during the rescue, accepting casualties to protect non-combatants who had no military training or value. The selfless behavior should have compromised their combat effectiveness, yet it motivated them to fight with intensity that overwhelmed the Vorthic guards. Major Hill's fighter pilots coordinated their attacks, using musical references that somehow conveyed precise tactical information. "Play it again, Sam," meant concentrate fire on the command ship. Blue moon rising indicated that reinforcements were approaching from the system's edge. The communication system was completely improvised, yet every pilot understood the references and responded with perfect timing. Their attacks created exactly the distraction pattern needed for the Marines to complete their boarding operation. Captain Miller piloted his transport ship through maneuvers that exceeded its design specifications. His engineering crew modified the vessel's systems during combat, making real-time adjustments that kept the ship intact through impossible acceleration patterns. When Miller announced that his ship could not carry all the rescued civilians, 3 fighter pilots volunteered to stay behind and hold off Vorthic reinforcements. They made this decision without orders from higher command, choosing certain death to ensure the mission's success. The rescue operation succeeded through a series of tactical improvisations that Vorthic military computers rated as impossible. Every human involved made decisions that prioritized protecting others over their own survival. Commander Foster submitted an after-action report that focused not on tactical analysis, but on individual acts of heroism by his personnel. He recommended medals for crew members who had made decisions that any rational military assessment would classify as strategic errors. Yet these same decisions had made the mission possible. The willingness to sacrifice tactical advantages for moral principles had created opportunities that conventional military planning could never achieve. Zethkar reviewed the rescue mission data with his senior staff officers. The human tactical decisions made no sense according to established military doctrine, yet they had produced results that exceeded anything in Vorthic experience. They value individual lives over strategic objectives, Sub-Commander Yithnal observed. This should make them predictable and weak. But it does not, Zethkar replied. Their concern for individual welfare motivates them to fight with effectiveness that exceeds our best combat units. The commander realized that his fundamental assumptions about warfare had been incorrect. Military effectiveness was not just about superior technology or tactical planning. It was about the moral foundation that gave soldiers reason to fight beyond mere survival. Human forces fought with devastating capability precisely because they believed their cause justified any sacrifice. This created a level of commitment and adaptability that no purely professional military organization could match. The revelation troubled Zethkar more than any weapon system or defensive capability. The Vorthak Empire had conquered 17 worlds using predictable patterns of behavior that could be analyzed and countered. Through superior strategy, humans fought for reasons that had nothing to do with conquest or territorial control. They fought to create conditions where fighting would become unnecessary. Their military operations were designed not just to defeat enemies, but to protect something they valued more than victory itself. Zethkar made a decision that would have been impossible at the beginning of the campaign. He requested a direct meeting with human military leadership, ostensibly to discuss surrender terms, but actually hoping to understand what drove their incomprehensible approach to warfare. For the first time in his career, the commander admitted that he might be facing an enemy that could not be defeated through conventional military methods. These humans had mastered something more powerful than tactical superiority. They had learned how to fight for hope itself. The meeting between Zethkar and Admiral Karen Foster took place aboard the hospital ship Harmony's Dream. The location itself reflected human tactical thinking. They chose a medical vessel in the middle of the battle zone, surrounded by doctors and nurses treating wounded from both sides. Zethkar arrived with minimal escort, hoping to demonstrate his peaceful intentions. Admiral Foster met him in the ship's conference room, which had been converted from a patient recovery ward. The walls still showed medical equipment and healing supplies. "Commander Zethkar," Admiral Foster said as she entered the room, "I understand. You requested this meeting to discuss surrender terms." The Vorthic commander studied the human leader carefully. She was smaller than most of his officers, with gray hair and calm eyes that showed no fear. Her uniform was simple and practical, unlike the elaborate dress of most military commanders he had encountered. "Admiral Foster, I came here to understand something that troubles me," Zethkar replied honestly. "Your forces fight in ways that my tactical computers cannot predict. I need to know what motivates such behavior." Before Foster could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the hospital ship. Emergency lights flashed as the ship's captain announced over the communication system that they were under attack. Sub-Commander Yithanol had launched a surprise assault on the meeting location. He believed his commander had become compromised by human psychological warfare and needed to be rescued from enemy influence. This was not planned, Zethkar told Admiral Foster as weapons fire shook the hospital ship. "My subordinate has acted without orders." Foster activated her personal communicator and began coordinating the ship's defense while medical personnel continued treating patients in the surrounding wards. Dr. Frank Moore continues surgery on the Vorthic officer in Ward 3. Nurse Julie Taylor evacuate the critical patients to the lower decks. The Admiral's calm response amazed Zethkar. She was treating wounded Vorthic soldiers as patients to be protected rather than enemies to be eliminated. Even during combat, human medical personnel made no distinction between their own wounded and those of their opponents. Dr. Moore worked frantically to save the life of a Vorthic warrior who had been injured in earlier fighting. The alien soldier was conscious and aware that human doctors were risking their own safety to treat him. "Why do you help me?" he asked in broken English. "Because you are hurt and we are doctors," Dr. Moore replied simply while continuing the medical procedure. "That is all that matters right now." Nurse Taylor organized the evacuation of patients from both species, making decisions based on medical need rather than military affiliation. She assigned human orderlies to carry wounded Vorthic soldiers to safety, treating enemy personnel with the same care given to their own forces. Meanwhile, Admiral Foster made tactical decisions that prioritized protecting Zethkar's life over strategic advantages. When Vorthic boarding parties tried to capture the conference room, she positioned her security team to defend the enemy commander as well as herself. "Why are you protecting me?" Zethkar asked as human Marines established defensive positions around their location. "Because you came here under a flag of truce," Foster replied. "That means something to us, even if your subordinate does not understand diplomatic protocol." Captain Matt Brown led the counterattack against Yithanol's forces, coordinating with Lieutenant Commander Nancy Davis and Major Steve Rogers. Their tactical approach focused on disabling enemy vessels rather than destroying them, taking additional risks to preserve life even among hostile forces. The human response to the surprise attack revealed everything Zethkar needed to understand about their approach to warfare. They fought not to conquer or destroy, but to create conditions where violence could. Captain Brown's fighters used precision attacks to disable Vorthic weapon systems without breaching hull integrity. Lieutenant Commander Davis coordinated rescue operations for crews from damaged ships on both sides. Major Rogers led boarding parties that captured enemy personnel without causing unnecessary casualties. As the battle continued around them, Admiral Foster explained human military philosophy to the confused Vorthak commander. We do not fight because we enjoy violence or because we want to control others. We fight to protect the right of people to live in peace. Zethkar watched human medical personnel treating wounded from both sides while their military forces fought, with restraint designed to minimize casualties. The behavior was completely contrary to efficient military doctrine, yet it was devastatingly effective. Your forces could win more quickly if they focused on destroying rather than capturing, he observed. Winning quickly is not our goal, Foster replied. Ending conflict permanently is our goal. Dead enemies cannot become allies. Destroyed civilizations cannot contribute to galactic peace. The battle ended when Captain Brown's forces successfully disabled Yithanol's flagship without destroying it. The sub-commander was captured alive and would face trial for violating diplomatic protocols. But he would not be executed. As medical teams began treating wounded from the engagement, Zethkar realized that his fundamental understanding of warfare had been completely overturned. Military effectiveness was not about tactical superiority or strategic planning. It was about the moral foundation that gave meaning to individual sacrifice. Human forces fought with devastating capability because they believed their cause justified any risk. But their cause was not conquest or dominance. Their cause was creating a universe where all species could exist without fear. Commander Zethkar, Admiral Foster said as the meeting resumed, "What will you tell your government about this encounter?" The Vorthic commander considered his options carefully. He could continue the invasion and probably achieve military victory through overwhelming force. But victory against humans would be meaningless because they would never truly be defeated. They would continue fighting for their ideals regardless of tactical outcomes. More importantly, they had shown him a different way to resolve conflicts that did not require the destruction of entire civilizations. "I will recommend immediate withdrawal of all Vorthic forces from human space," Zethkar announced. "Not because my military has been defeated, but because I have learned that victory against your species would accomplish nothing worthwhile." Admiral Foster nodded with understanding. "What will you do now?" "I will request reassignment to diplomatic service," Zethkar replied. "I want to learn more about your approach to conflict resolution. Perhaps there are better solutions than conquest." In his final report to the Vorthic High Command, Zethkar wrote that humans represented a fundamentally different approach to existence itself. They fought not just to survive, but to create a universe worth surviving in. Any military organization that opposed this philosophy would face an enemy that could never be truly defeated through conventional warfare. The humans had mastered something far more powerful than tactical superiority. They had learned how to fight for hope, and hope was the one thing that could not be conquered through force. Admiral Foster's report to Earth Command noted that the Vorthic withdrawal represented not just a military victory, but the beginning of a new era in galactic relations. She recommended opening formal diplomatic channels with Commander Zethkar, recognizing someone who had the potential to become an ally. The war ended not with conquest, but with understanding. For the first time in galactic history, a military conflict had been resolved through the realization that some things were more important than victory itself. Humans had won by showing their enemies what they were truly fighting for.